Okay, so welcome. Thank you for joining the Wild Ride launch webinar. We're very excited to kind of launch this campaign again this year. I want to tell you, as I said, we have 90 minutes scheduled. We're going to spend some time learning about the Wild Ride itself and what it is and how it works. We are going to hear a fair bit about the why of the Wild Ride, which is the work that PWRDF is doing with partners serving refugees and internally displaced people. Janice is going to walk us through a little bit of the how you get started registration. And we'll hear a little bit of inspiration from our friend Yukon Betty, AKA Betty Davidson from Yukon, of course, and how she has been participating in Wild Ride. And then, as I said, we'll have opportunity for questions and answers and some discussion. And so if you do have questions as they arise, please do drop them into the chat. We will have 2 Q&A sessions. So we will get to your questions during those two time periods, but certainly as you have questions, please do feel free to drop them into the chat. So I want to start us off. Oh, sorry, let me kind of introduce my colleagues and our presenters for today. So we will be hearing from Primate Linda Nichols, as well as my colleague Naba Garoon, who is PWRDF's Humanitarian Response Coordinator, Janice Bean, who is PWRDF's Communications Marketing Coordinator, and Yukon Betty, who I have introduced. The rest of our team is Anselm Hamid, Jacqueline Tucci, and Carolyn Cummins, who are kind of the Wild Ride team, as well as a couple of other colleagues here as well. Christine, who was often helpful to answer questions as well. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kim Umbach, and I'm the volunteer coordinator for PWRDF. So at this point, I want to introduce Archbishop Linda Nichols, who will open us with prayer. And some of you may remember Archbishop Linda's hymn sings from previous years. This year, she's going to be taking on a walking challenge that you can follow through her social media. So start us off, Archbishop Linda.
Thank you very much, Kim. Yeah, I'm changing it up this year. Let us pray. God of compassion and grace, we thank you that you have placed in the hearts of Anglicans across Canada a desire to reach out, to help, to assist those in any kind of need, either through disaster, climate change, migration. And we thank you that this year that compassion will be directed to those who are refugees. We pray that this wild ride, with all of the fun and the energy that it creates, will also bring in the resources that will make a difference in the lives of those who are in such desperate need in a world that is being transformed daily by war and climate change and economic disasters. Give us strong compassion, give us joy in the activities that will help us to celebrate what we have to give. Be with us in this opportunity to learn more, for we ask in the name of Christ, our Savior. Amen.
Thank you for that, for those lovely words. Give me one quick second. I'm just going to get my notes ready. Because I am going to walk us through a little bit of information about this year's Wild Ride.
Kim, we're all set with the screen whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So, just getting myself set to my proper notes here. There we go. So this year's Wild Ride is running from June 20th, 2023 to October 9th. So basically what we're saying is from World Refugee Day through Thanksgiving Day, just so we can keep a track of it. And we are planning our wrap-up celebration on October the 18th. So next slide, Janice. The Wild Ride is PWRDF's peer-to-peer fundraising campaign. So it's one of many different fundraising approaches that we take that sort of all kind of blends in together to make our complete kind of strategy for recruiting or asking for donations. And there's many different ways that people generously give to PWRDF. A peer-to-peer campaign is one of those. This year's sorry, the way it started is we started participating in the Ride for Refuge. And as of 2022, we decided to strike out on our own and create our own peer-to-peer campaign, which is called the PWRDF Wild Ride. This year's campaign is going to be in memory of Reverend Canon Greg Smith. Greg was the diocesan representative for the Diocese of Huron and a PWRDF mapping exercise facilitator. He passed away in early May of this year. We're dedicating this ride to Greg because he has been a longtime supporter since the beginning of PWRDF's participation in the Ride for Refuge and a big supporter of our ability to kind of start up our own campaign. So that's kind of a nice thing for us to do this year, I think. Sorry, I just jumped ahead of myself in my notes. So our goals for 2023 is this year to raise $50,000, to have 15 teams and 75 participants. This is a modest increase from last year. Last year we raised just over $41,000. We had 12 teams and 55 participants. So we think that this is a modest increase that we are confident that we will be able to achieve with your support. And we'll learn more a bit later about really the more people that we have will help us to reach these kind of exciting goals for 2023. Next slide, Janice. We invite you to put your stamp on it. So you can walk, ride, rollerblade, run, bike, knit, crochet, read, whatever it is that is your passion. The Wild Ride is an opportunity for you to share your passion while raising funds for PWRDF in support of refugees and internally displaced people. It's pretty much anything you can think of will go. You can do it as a group, you can do it on your own, you can do it with friends, indoors, outdoors, doesn't really matter. So, we will be kind of sharing all of those and celebrating everybody's accomplishments on October the 19th at our wrap-up. Next one, Janice. The ride is virtual. So some people tend to do their thing on their own. Some people do it as a group, as a team. Some people will actually plan small events in their community where they'll come together and do a ride or a walk together and then perhaps go for a lunch or have a meal at their church. It really is entirely up to you how you choose to do it. Sometimes it's fun to do a little bit of a social event where you can sort of do your ride and your activity and have fun together, doing some sort of a social activity in conjunction with it. Whatever you do, have fun. Next slide. So our priority right now is to recruit participants and teams, because that really is the secret sauce for a successful peer-to-peer campaign. The more people that you have allows us to raise more money by sharing the fundraising load. So no one person has to raise it all on their own. As I said, last year we had 12 teams and 55 participants, and we raised just over $41,000. So we are very grateful for the fundraising that our participants have done. So we think that if we get a few more participants, it should be reasonably easy to achieve our $50,000 goal. So starting and joining a team allows you to invite your friends, family, church members, and community to join you in the Wild Ride. So not only can you raise more money, you can build community and have fun. So more people can have more impact and more fun. This year, we have some incentives. Some of you who were here last year remember that when you raised $200, you received a t-shirt. This year, the t-shirts are back. I've got one on now, which you probably can't see. But so if you raise $200, you receive a Wild Ride t-shirt. If you raise $400, you'll receive new for this year, a PWRDF Wild Ride bag. If you raise $1,000 or more, you are entered into a draw for one of 3 PWRDF hoodies. And we have a team incentive for teams of 10 will be entered into a draw for Let's Roam scavenger hunt and team building packages. So we will provide you with a lot of support along the way. We will be providing regular e-blasts like the one you received to sign up for this webinar, where we will feature some of our partners who are serving refugees and internally displaced people. We're going to focus on 4 stories, so it's not too confusing. We have, you'll hear of one today from Church World Service in a project in Tanzania. We have one from South Sudan, another from Jordan supporting the earthquakes survivors in Turkey and Syria, and then we'll talk about a partner from the Ukraine in the fall. So those will be the 4 areas that we will be highlighting just for communication purposes, but you'll learn today of many other projects that PWRDF is supporting around the world. I will send out, so I kind of am your first point of contact for Wild Ride. You'll be receiving regular update emails from me with kind of progress on fundraising, links to stories and videos that you can share with your supporters, and fundraising tips, and kind of sharing some inspiration from some of the other teams so that you can sort of learn from others what they might be up to. As people ask questions, I will make sure that those questions and answers get included in some of those regular emails as well. And in addition to that, myself and our staff are always available for a bit of coaching, a little bit of extra support, brainstorming, and help with promoting your Wild Ride. And of course, help with making sure you get registered properly in any of the Canada Helps platform issues. So to get started, we'll invite you to go to the Wild Ride page on our website, register a team or join a team, register yourself as an individual. You can customize your fundraising page, start fundraising, and have fun. Janice is going to go through in a bit more detail the registration process a little bit later. So now I'm going to introduce my colleague, Naba Gurung. Naba is our humanitarian response coordinator. He's been with PWRDF since 2002. And in his work as our humanitarian response coordinator, he has a lot of experience working with partners, specifically with refugees and internally displaced people. He was born and raised in Nepal, where he worked in conservation agriculture and forestry in integrated conservation and development projects, and has been with PWRDF since 2002. So take it away, Naba.
Thank you, Kim. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning. So I'm Naba, glad to be here. So those of you, I hope you can hear me. Those of you who were on the Wild Ride event last year might have seen the same slide that you can see now on the screen with 100 million people. So this is the number of people who have been forcefully displaced from their homes and communities and haven't been able to return, sometimes even for decades. I wish I could tell you that this number has gone down this year, but unfortunately it has gone up. It's now close to 110 million worldwide. And majority of them are living like refugees within their home countries, within the border of their countries. Around 35 million of them are refugees, meaning they have crossed the border and living in the neighboring countries. Some of them in the camps, some of them in informal settlements. So these are the people basically running for their lives, seeking protection, and are in need of life-saving support. Next slide, Janice, please. So globally, as I said earlier, the situation hasn't improved, mainly because of ongoing wars and conflicts and violence in several countries, but also the increasing number and intensity of climate-related disasters, as you all are aware, which is also happening in Canada these days. And then the impact of COVID-19 and economic uncertainties. So the needs have greatly outpaced the response, the funding, and the attempts for political solutions. And more crises have become protracted, meaning that they are there for several years and have become complex too, meaning that this is people are affected not only by one crisis, but multiple of crises. Next slide, Janice. So how do PWRDF respond to this worldwide crisis? I think almost all of you who are present here are familiar with these networks of which PWRDF is a part. So PWRDF has a number of long-standing partners around the world, the civil society organizations, like-minded organizations. The ACT Alliance, I think is known to you. I don't need to describe that to you, I hope. The Anglican Alliance, and then the Canadian Food Crisis Bank Network. So all these network and partnerships allow us to be working with the church-based organizations, with the civil society organizations who are rooted in the communities, who are there or almost close to the crisis-affected communities, those internally displaced and refugees. And as you know, PWRDF is not an implementing agency. We're not set up as a with offices overseas or with staff overseas. So this partnership also allows us to work with others jointly, developing policies together, the guidelines, strategies, designing and monitoring projects together, and pooling resources for greater impact and for efficient use of your donations. And the partnership is also inconsistent with our values, the principles of PWRDF, and also our own capacity as a small or mid-term relief and development agency. Next slide, please, Janice. So today I'll briefly highlight a case of Tanzania, especially a Nyarugusu refugee camp in northern Tanzania near Burundi and Dominican Republic of Congo. I've been to this camp a few times, and most recently in April. And there, as Kim mentioned, is Church World Service. You can see the CWS there, which stands for Church World Service, is a member of the ACT Alliance and a long-standing partner of PWRDF. They have a site office there, working with the refugees. The camp itself is mostly populated by the refugees from Dominican Republic of Congo, but also from Burundi and other countries. Yeah, the Congo, the Dominican Republic of Congo, as you know, is one of the resource-rich countries in the world, but have been experiencing violence and conflict for several years, including some natural disasters. So they have around 6 million internally displaced people and around 1 million people as refugees in the neighboring countries. Tanzania is one of the hosting countries. And here in the Nyarugusu camp, the camp which you can see here is the largest refugee camp in Tanzania, hosting around 150,000 population. And because of resource constraints, and when I was there, there were in April, there were a lot of new arrivals coming, and many of these people are living there since 1990s in the camp. I actually talked to one girl of like 25-year-old, same age as my daughter, who is an extension worker there, and who just grew up there in the camp. So the camp has been her home and the community, and she doesn't know about her home and communities in Congo. So the camp is actually very overcrowded. It's hosting 3 times its population of its capacity, and the UN appeal for funding for Tanzania is actually around 38% funded. So they rely on food assistance from World Food Program, but their ration, which is basic staple of maize flour, beans, cooking oil, and salt, is reduced to 80% or is sometimes even to 60% from time to time. So because of the overcrowded nature of the camp, they face the challenges for shelter, the housing, the water and sanitation, and other restrictions as well, because to move out of the camp they need to get permit from the government, from the camp commandment. Even for me to get to the camp, I had to get 3 types. I mean, first I need to get approval through Church World Service from the Ministry of Home Affairs of Tanzania, from their central government, and then I had to get a stamp on that letter from their zonal office in Kigoma, for which I had to wait a couple of hours in their office just to get the letter, the permit stamped. And then when I get to the camp, then I need to report to the camp commandment, the government officer who is in charge of the camp. So it's there are several restrictions to visitors, let alone to visitors, but then even more to the refugee population. Next slide, please, Janice. So what PWRDF is doing with Church World Service there, the funding comes from the Canadian Food Grants Bank with the equity, PWRDF equity there with the donations from the Anglicans, and then it's matched by the general account. And so this is a 3-year project where Church World Service is working with the extension workers there. So there are 10 extension workers, and they are all drawn from the refugee community themselves. So the idea is, yes, Church World Service is in the forefront, but it's basically a refugee-led response, because the main work is done by the 10 extension workers who have prior experience in the farming, who are kind of role models and has this experience in the motivating others and taking the knowledge to the community. So what they are doing is to do all season vegetable production, where they get trained in the demonstration farms, as well as growing fruit trees and other kinds of trees, multi-purpose trees like neem, moringa. I don't know whether you have heard about them, but they have medicinal values and a lot of other purposes. So they also would provide them with some poles for temporary shelter, and then also firewood. Firewood is also major limitation there, and the refugees women would have to go to host communities to get firewood, and then they get to conflict there as well. So the nursery has provided seedlings of multi-purpose tree species that would also provide them with firewoods. And so the nutrition from vegetable would help them diversify their diets, and also some of them have already started selling to the neighbors and in the market. Next slide, Janice, please. So this is another multi-purpose nursery. So there are 5, in fact, strategically located in different parts of the camp, because the camp itself has many sites, and because 150,000 is a big town in itself. So so there then the farmers are invited for training, and then they experiment vegetable growing, and then seedlings are also distributed from the site. Next slide, Dennis. So the extension worker drawn from within the community is one top layer, and then within that are the lead farmers who are role models, and then they become trainers of their own group members. So here is Lalia. She has been featured in our own PWRDF stories. I also visited her farm and also her family. And the constraint here is, back home when they were in Congo, they had a lot of land, but here they are growing in a tiny plot, and they had to make use of that plot, make most of that plot, and the water, because they are housed in very remote areas, the water is the constraint. You need compost, you need mulching, so almost they had to fight with so many limitations and restrictions. But these lead farmers are going against all these odds. Some of them, like Lalia, have even started shaving seeds of amaranth seed vegetable, the drought tolerant vegetable. Some of the amaranth varieties are drought tolerant, and seed of African nightshade vegetable, the one you can see here. So they are in the forefront, and they are role models to others in the camp. So yeah, next slide, please, Dennis. So that's basically Tanzania. I think I've taken a lot of time for Nyarugusu. So I'll briefly touch on other responses as well. As Kim said, we'll be covering South Sudan later in the next meeting, but in brief, PWRDF has been working with refugees, South Sudanese refugees in, we've worked in with them in Kenya, in Kakuma refugee camp, in Uganda. I know Janice visited them in Uganda as well, in Ethiopia, like that. But we have also been working inside the country with the host communities. Ye is, you can see the cursor there. Ye is where I first went there in Ye in 2009, and then my latest visit was in April, where we've been working with the returnees and the IDPs and host communities. There are other projects up there in the northeast, Malakal, and then in the place like Awel and Wow, where working with the Episcopal Church of South Sudan for both peace building and humanitarian response. Also in there near Awel, there is a place called Renk. There is Diocese of Renk has a theological training center there, and they are hosting a number of returnees from Sudan, both South Sudanese and the refugees. And with Anglican Alliance partners, we're providing some relief support to them. They have started with their own resources, whatever the diocese could raise within from their own resources, and also we're topping up so that they could continue doing that response. We've also worked with the diaspora communities, mainly in Winnipeg, and through them we've supported the Diocese of Bor and also the peace building work of the provincial office. Maybe we should go to the next slide. And Ethiopia, I know my time is running out. So Ethiopia been responding there for several years. Most recently, you might have heard in the news the Tigray conflict since late 2020. It has produced a massive number of internally displaced people and even some refugees who fled to Sudan. So PWRDF is supporting the ACT Alliance appeal with the Lutheran World Federation Ethiopia office, providing water in the internally displaced people's camp, supporting the childcare centers, and supporting the caregivers of those children for income generating opportunities. So next slide, please, Janice. Very briefly, as Kim said, we'll be featuring one of the projects from the Middle East as well. But for now, I just would like to mention that PWRDF, through the equity in the Canadian Food Grants Bank, I hope you know what equity would mean in the Food Grants Bank. The Canadian Food Grants Bank, we've been supporting the food assistance program in projects in Yemen, being implemented by the Adventist Development and Relief Agency there, ADRA in short, and there's ADRA Canada as well. So we've been partnering with them through the Canadian Food Grants Bank. Iraq, as you know, since 2014, the ISIS inflicted conflict and displacement, and then now there for a couple of years there's lots of returnees, but they return to almost nothing into their community. So Lutheran World Federation there has been working to help the returnees set up the necessary infrastructure, the drinking water, sanitation, and others. So that has been our support to them. Syria, both conflict since 2011-12 and also the recent earthquake. So a number of ACT Alliance members, the Middle East Council of Churches, Christian Aid, HEX is a Swiss agency with an operation there, are working responding to both crisis affected people and also earthquake affected people. We had around 195,000 donations from people like you that has gone to in support of the appeals to the work of these ACT members. And Lebanon, you will hear later as well, has a sizable number of Syrian refugees. And I think in terms of per capita, this is the country hosting highest number of refugees. And the Middle East Council of Churches, also an ACT member, is working with the refugee communities there, and part of our support goes to them, and it's also pooled with resources from other ACT members from US and Europe. Yeah, next slide, please, Denise. So Asia, mostly right now, because of the Canadian government policy, sanction policy, PWRDF and other Canadian civil society organizations are not allowed to work in Afghanistan, but we've been responding to the needs of refugees, the Afghan refugees in Pakistan. The Community World Service is an ACT member and a long-standing partner of PWRDF, so our support goes through them. And then Burma, Myanmar is another country with lots of human rights issues and displacement, both to Thai-Burma border and also to Bangladesh. But they also have a sizable number of internally displaced people. So PWRDF support goes to the Rohingya communities who are internally displaced within the country in Rakhine state. The Lutheran World Federation has an office both in Yangon, but also right in Rakhine, where the internally displaced people are put in the camp, they call cantonment camp, like IDP camp, like refugees. So they've been providing support there. In Bangladesh, the Rohingya are almost 1 million population in Cox's Bazar. So various ACT members are supporting them. And then in Thai-Burma border, in Thailand, people, the Burmese are also displaced there, and PWRDF has one partner there, the Drug and Alcohol Recovery and Education Project. Next slide, Janice. So Ukraine, I think many of you are aware of the PWRDF response. We've been working with the ACT Alliance members, but also a number of local partner organizations there. There are, I would say, kind of 4 kinds of responses. One is extremely risky in the areas where it is sometimes occupied by Russians, and then it's also cleared by the Ukrainian army. So it's like it falls under one jurisdiction, then comes back to Ukraine. So even their ACT members and with their local partners are providing relief there. And then the other area is the front line itself, the front line or close to front line where active battle is happening. And then the more from east, when you move towards west, and those are areas where people are mostly displaced. But then there are millions of Ukrainians who have now returned from within Europe, returned to Ukraine because they are aware of the risk, but they couldn't continue living as refugees in the other countries. So they have chosen to return, a sizable number of them, but they don't have, they have their original houses and communities are destroyed. So they are the other groups who are in need of support, and that ACT members are responding to them. And then there are others who are still where living as refugees. So the Hungarian Interchurch Action is one of the members who have operations inside Ukraine for almost 2 decades, but also in Hungary, they are with local churches, they are responding to the refugee needs there. And then Church World Service has had office in Moldova, and that was even prior to the conflict. And they are responding to the refugees, especially to the Roma communities there. And so our support goes to the work that they are doing with the Roma communities. So I think I'll end there. Sorry, I've gone over time, but thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. I think everything we've been doing is through your support, and we've been able to reach out globally and to many parts of the world. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Naba. That was fantastic. Now I'm going to invite Jacqueline Tucci has put together a video clip. Naba talked a little bit about the work in with refugees in Tanzania through Church World Service. Fairly recently, when some of us were in Winnipeg, we had the opportunity to meet Mary Obiero, who is the Director of Protection and Relief, I think, services within Church World Service. And she's sort of shared some of the work that they've been doing and a little bit about why it's so important. So you ready to share, Jacqueline?
Yeah. I'm going to share it just
okay.
for bandwidth purposes here. So here we go.
Perfect. Yep.
The Horn of Africa drought has affected 31.8 million people. That is in Kenya, Somalia, and Ethiopia. Ethiopia is the most affected with about 17 million people, followed by Somalia with 8 million people, and then Kenya we are at 6.7. So when you talk about drought, food of course is the most urgent need, but there are other effects that come with the drought. People have lost all their livelihoods. That people who live in these communities are pastoralists, they keep animals. So all the animals died because there is no water, there is no fodder. Then without water, of course, then you are without water and without a nutritious food or enough food, people start getting sick. So we have a whole of health-related issues. There is no water, of course. Sometimes even if you give them food and they don't have water, then they will not be able to cook the food. So we are working with refugees in Western Tanzania, and we are giving them the seeds, the tools, we are training them, and we are supporting them to get extension services. And their focus is planting vegetables. They are planting vegetables because it's a high value crop. It requires a very short time to grow, and we are supporting conservation agriculture, and we want them to grow organic vegetables. They're actually growing organic vegetables, and this is just to help them improve their diet. Because when you are in a refugee camp and you are given food ration, and in this particular refugee camp, the food ration comes from World Food Program. It's same food you are given for 1 year, which will be about 365 days. So you can imagine if you are eating the same diet for 365 days and you have been living in that refugee camp for 40 years. And we have seen that faith leaders or faith organizations, when things come really hot, when things become really difficult, we have to be there to provide hope. Because in Africa, church is still very appreciated. And when people do not have food, they'll actually walk to church and tell the pastor, the reverend, the church minister that they have nothing at home to eat. And those church ministers will actually look for us, like me, they have my number, they call and say, oh Mary, my people are hungry, they're coming here, If you can even just give me a sack of maize meal, I'll put in my office, and when they come, I can even give a glass so that they go back with something to eat. And for that reason, we are very, very grateful for the support of Canadian farmers, and especially the funds that came through from Canadian Food Grants Bank, CFGB, and also got funding from the Humanitarian Coalition of Canada. With that money, I think we have received about 4 million Canadian dollars, and we have been able to feed 13,000 households, giving them monthly food ration for all that time. And that is life-saving. It's life-saving, because without it, then we'll be talking about something else. Like in Somalia, we already have people dying from hunger. So we hope that we'll continue providing food, but we also want to look into aspects of how do people continue living this? Because when I was young, I started doing this work when I was just 23 years, and I had just finished university. Many times I used to wonder, why are these guys living here? Until I started interacting with them more, talking to them more, then I realized home is home. You cannot move away from your home.
Yeah.
And for that reason, we want to see what are other things that we can be able to do with these people, for them to start adapting. The problem is actually climate change, and unfortunately, these people who are most affected, they have done nothing to contribute to this.
Yeah.
Completely nothing. It's gonna get worse. As Christians, we have hope and our wishes that it can get better, but we want to prepare for the worst scenario. If it gets worse, then what else?
Thanks, Janice. So we do have a few minutes for Q&A. So if anybody has questions, you can put it into the chat. We'll take a few minutes. And there was one question that was directed to me specifically. So that was from Susan. And Susan, you mentioned that the Diocese of BC is trying to support 250 refugees coming to Canada. And can the funds raised through Wild Ride be kept within the diocese to support those projects, or to support the wonderful projects that we're sharing today? So just a little bit about how we work with refugees at PWRDF. We do work with refugees in refugee camps and in other parts of the world as they are in need. We are not a sponsorship agreement holder, so we do not raise funds specifically to resettle refugees within Canada. We do support the refugee network just by kind of providing an opportunity for community learning and advocacy, and sort of helping to facilitate conversations within that network and supporting those refugee sponsorship coordinators. So the answer, well, the short answer is no. The whatever is raised through the PWRDF Wild Ride will support PWRDF's projects and partners serving refugees and internally displaced people. So those would be the projects that NABA is describing today, whereas the work that you do for your refugee projects within your diocese is a different, because it's directly to the diocese, it doesn't come through PWRDF. Are there any other questions? Janice, are you seeing any that?
I see a comment from Barb. She's just noted that the World Food Bank, maybe Nava can help with this. The World Food Bank is cutting programs in some refugee camps worldwide, and the question is who is taking on that work? Who's coming in to fill in the gaps there? Nava, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you, Janice. Yeah, unfortunately, yes, World Food Program is the largest actor in terms of food assistance to many internally displaced people, refugees, and others who are in need of food assistance. There's a food security classification where we say IPC, integrated phase classification 3, 4, and 5. From 3 to 5 is 3 is crisis, 4 is emergency, and 5 is famine. And so there are many areas in several countries where the situation is facing like 4 and even 5 level close to famine. But unfortunately, small NGOs and local actors do not have that level of resources that would match the response of World Food Program. So unfortunately, there is no other actor who can come close to that level of infrastructure, the human resources, and financial resources, because most of the high-income countries like Canada, US, like through USAID, Canada through Global Affairs Canada, their big share of their responses go to the UN agencies like World Food Program. So that's the main channel of humanitarian assistance globally, although organizations like PWRDF are there, but we are there in this very small scale. I mean, it counts still is very important. But when we are talking about several million people, then it's the organizations like World Food Program who receive funding from big donor countries, high-income countries, who can have the impact there. And unfortunately, in several instances, like you have noted, and I've talked to many people in several refugee camps and outside of the camps, that they are experiencing this cut because of the resource constraint that World Food Program is facing. Also, the United Nations High Commission of Refugees. Every year in the country, there is something called, there's a mechanism called UN cluster. So the United Nations agencies, like there's UNICEF, World Food Program, and others, and then even the ACT members, ACT Alliance members, like our partners, are invited in a forum there, and then they call something like humanitarian assistance plan for the country, and then set up an appeal and send the UN system sends to different donor countries. But even more and more, the resources, the needs are growing, but the response is falling down, and so there's the needs have outpaced the resource, the financial availability.
Now, but can I just jump in? I see Barb's got a follow-up question, and it's kind of similar to my question, is just to connect the dots there. So it's not so much like the World Food Program is cutting programs because their funding is lowered, and PWRDF was part of an advocacy campaign this year to apply pressure to the government of Canada to increase foreign aid spending, and in fact they didn't. They decreased it, and so that's the impact, is that these programs that are funded by big wealthy countries, they're not making the decision to cut programs. It's being made for them because they're just not getting their funding. Is that kind of,
yeah, so they'll have to depend on the decision, political decisions, decision of the governments or ministers, ministers who handle the portfolio of foreign assistance, the ODA file.
great. Any other questions? And I'm not seeing anything else in the chat.
Janice, so why don't we maybe you can do the registration stuff, and we'll hear from Betty, and then we'll have another Q&A. So it's not your last chance if you do have more questions about these programs and of course the Wild Ride logistics. feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll come back to another Q&A.
Great. Okay, so I am going to try my best here to walk you through this. I hope everybody can see the, just gonna, if I could see a couple of waved hands that you're seeing the welcome ride, the welcome to the PWRDF. Thank you, Betty. Okay, so as Kim noted in her original presentation, the place to get started is pwrdf.org/wild-ride. Okay, and you'll come up to this page. There is a couple of buttons that you can avail yourself of here. Read the FAQ, the frequently asked questions. That's a good place to pop into if you're looking for, if you have a question, maybe it's there. And then the launch story that Jacqueline wrote about this year's campaign, that includes a lot of the information that we have been going over today, but it's an easy way to, if you want to put something in your parish newsletter or your e-blast or an announcement or whatever you have, that's a good place to get some of that data about refugees and internally displaced people and some of the details about the ride. So here's our this embedded page that is, so Canada Helps, I think Kim mentioned, is our the donor platform that we're using, which is a very well-respected payment processing system. So it's great to be working with them. So this is, the sort of landing page, as we call it, for the ride. And we've got a couple of options, well, 3 options. You can join a team, you can create a team, or you can join as an individual. And I just want to show you that, like, a little bit further down before we dive into that, there is this, great sort of overall information. Again, if you're looking for ways to communicate this quickly to people, the narrative is all here for you to copy and paste, or copy and paste a portion, or work from. So as you can see, the number of teams right now is 0. So we're hoping that's going to change in the next few weeks. But just let's click over to participants. We do have Primate Linda has already set up her page. Bountiful Blessings, that's the amazing Yukon Betty with her blankets. Is Jane on the call today from Vancouver? She's set up a page. And our very own Kim, who's did you say, Kim, how far you're going to run this summer? Or
Going to be doing 500 kilometers again this summer, but I'm planning a little bit of a twist at the end of the campaign that I'm trying to work out. It may involve a costume race.
Wow. Okay. And St. Paul's scavenger hunters as well. So that's a great start. Great to have these individuals already signed up. So if I was going to, Kim, should I just kind of click through the join as an individual, or do you want me to do the team?
If you could do the team, that would be great.
Give it a try here.
Give it a shot. We'll see what the challenge is.
Yeah. So you would click on create a team, and this page comes up here for you. You're going to just sign in. If you did this last year, you should already have an account with Canada Helps. But basically that's what you're doing, is creating a profile within Canada Helps. So you're going to add all that information. And then, just like a baking show, I'm going to go to mine already. So it's already been pre-done for us here.
This is how I get Janice to become a team captain.
Yeah, ha ha ha.
Ha, ha, ha.
Well, I'm only ha-ha-haing because I'm not 100% sure if this is going to work. So I would love to be a captain. Okay, so then you can create your personal fundraising page for your team. Okay, and so I mean, I hope that's what this is. So you're going to add in your name and set your goal amount, and then we have this logo that I think you can change to be something personal if you want, but it's set up there for you. And then again, with the text is already there so that you don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel. But what you could do is add in here what you are going to do. So Betty probably has added in that she's making 10 baby blankets. The Primate probably added in somewhere about doing her walk. So that is customizable to what you want to do. And then if you can, oh, I forgot to make, okay. Janice's awesome adventure. I have no idea what this is. Okay, so let's just try this. So continue. And then, okay, so it's because I said create a team, so I basically set myself as the captain. So now I'm going to create the team's name. And so that's where you can maybe put in some of that individuality. So I'm not going to go all the way through this whole thing unless you want me to. Kim, did you want me to?
No, I think as long as we got to that page, so you can see
Yeah,
what the steps were.
so that's sort of the gist of it. You can upload a personal image there, and then you're just going to hit continue. And it is pretty, like, it does sort of lead you through. And we are here for questions in the registration process if something is, you know, just not behaving the way that we expect it to, which unfortunately in the world of computers, it does happen occasionally. So I'm going to stop sharing there. I think.
And we do have some support from Canada Helps as well through the back end. So sometimes when things have gone a little bit awry, it takes us a little bit of time just to connect with our technical support from Canada Helps.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, are we going to hear from Betty now, or do you want?
Yeah. We'll have Betty kind of tell us about her experience. Betty has been a longtime supporter of Ride for Refuge and Wild Ride. And so just as a little inspiration, why don't you take it away, Betty, and let us know what you're up to.
Okay.
You sort of let the cat out of the bag a little bit, but.
I started with Ride for Refuge walking. And after a couple of years, I decided that I'd rather do something else. So I started doing the crocheting baby blankets, and I have actually really enjoyed doing that. I did find that towards the end of the summer, I was getting kind of tired of making baby blankets, and desperate to try and get it done in the time that I had. But I have actually started. When I heard that Wild Ride was going to happen again, I started working on a blanket, which I will show you if you'd like to see it. This is the blanket that I have finished making. There it is. And yeah, so that's the first of 10. And I will post it on my personal page in Facebook to say that this is the first one for Wild Ride, and then I'll include information that we received today and so on. So I have run into problems mainly with the registration, because a lot of people didn't want to submit their email. They wanted to give me the money, and then I would do that. But Kim has been very helpful with that in terms of setting it up so that I can send those, make a list of the people that want to donate physically rather than through the emails, and that's worked out quite well. So yeah, so that's kind of where we are right now. And I just I had sent notes to everybody who was on the executive committee for our diocese to say, yeah, please come and join me. And I have just received a note from somebody about how to get involved in that, and so I will be talking with them to see how we can do that, because I know that Whitehorse, Christchurch Cathedral, makes prayer shawls, and I thought that some of those people might be interested in doing that for Wild Ride this summer. So that's where we're going with that. Yeah. So, right. And I did have a question, and that is that I signed up this year as an individual, but I'm wondering whether it's possible to change it back to the to my
team.
yeah, my team.
Yeah. So yeah, it's going to take a little bit of doing, but I will work with you on that, Betty, to
Okay.
set up your team, and then
Yeah.
what we'll do is join your individual page to your team page.
Well, this is it, because I mean, last year I only had one
Yeah.
person who wanted to be involved, and this year
Yeah.
she decided not to. So
Right.
that's why I
Awesome.
went individual. But now I'm getting people saying
They want to join.
part of it. You know?
Awesome. That's fantastic. Great. Thanks, Betty. That's pretty and love the creativity. So
Yeah.
appreciate that. So are there any other questions? And yeah, like Betty, like if you've started as an individual and you want to form a team, I would suggest contact me, and together we'll walk through that change process. It's sometimes easier if you do it one way the first time, but nothing is impossible. So we'll work together to make sure that we get you signed up the way you want to be signed up.
Kim, we have a question here. If you aren't joining, or if you're not part of a team or joining as an individual, is there a way to just make a general donation to the Wild Ride?
Yes, there is. So if you go to the page, that same pwrdf.org/wild-ride, you can donate to a team. I think you can just make a donation right on that main page. There should be a donate form as well, so you can, or you can choose to sponsor an individual. If you pick somebody fun like Betty, you can just pop on Betty's page and give her the donation, and it goes to Wild Ride. So
Yeah, I'll just show everybody that, because you're absolutely right, Kim. But when you go to that Wild Ride page, I think everybody can see that. Right below, or right above where we were looking before with join a team, create a team, there's a big purple button that says donate now. So that would, I think when you click on that, you can assign it to a team, or you can just make it a generic. You can just donate now, or so you can dedicate it to one of the participants, or not. So that's great.
are there any other
I have a
questions?
comment or question. It's Renee.
Oh, hey, Renee.
This might have to go into an email. I'm not sure if anybody else is having problems, but I haven't actually gone in there and made and created a team. So I don't know how the team works. I understand the direction of the person that creates the team, but how does everybody else from, say, the church come in to be a part of that team?
Sure.
So I may have to email you, Kim, about that, unless everyone else
Sure.
is having the
So-
same question.
Yeah, it'll be a common question, actually, so I'll answer it right now. Again, if you don't see what it's supposed to do when you do register, then certainly contact me. But what's supposed to happen is when you sign up, you, as Janice showed you, you sort of fill in your page, you sign up, you set up your team. And once you've completed that process, you will receive a confirmation email saying that your team page has been set up, and you'll get a link that says invite others by sharing this link. And so what's going to happen is you're going to be provided a link to your team page, and that link you're going to send out to your parishioners, friends, family, anybody else, and say, hey, come join me. It's going to be a ton of fun. So that's the key to it, is that you will receive an invitation link.
And does each team member figure out what they want to do as their participation?
It depends on how your team wants to do it. So yes, they can participate as they wish. So say, for example, last year, we had a couple of teams. So Martha just left the call, but the St. George's Dragons, they had a team that they got together and they did a team kind of bike ride and walk one day. And that was their team thing. Whereas the PWRDF paddlers, which is mostly staff and our families, we sort of all did our own thing. So I ran, Janice sang, Carolyn kayaked, other people walked. So people sort of chose their own activities. So we were sort of a challenge-based team. I think the Vancouver team did a bit of both. They did a walk and a ride as a group, and then others did their own little thing as well. So it pretty well is anything goes. It depends on if your team wants to sort of set up something as a group. that's up to you. Otherwise, people can just totally do their own thing as part of your team.
Okay, so I'm gathering that people pledge to donate. Is there a form that they sign up on, or do I have to do everything
Yep.
online?
So yeah, okay, good question there as well. So you as individuals will also have your individual fundraising page. And again, it'll be a link that you can send to your friends and family through either email or Facebook or other social media. They can click on the link and donate to your page. So it'll take them right to your page where they can sponsor you directly online, and they can leave you a message and whatever. If you have people, as Betty had mentioned, that don't necessarily want to provide their email address, or they prefer to give you cash, there is an offline donation form. So if you go to the Q&A page, there's a link, and I'll just make sure that it's still linked, but there is a form that we just need you to keep track of who the individuals are that are giving. They can give you the cash, and you can write down their names, their addresses, and their contact information, and put it together in one check that you send to us, or they can write a check to PWRDF and in the memo line write PWRDF Wild Ride. And the trick is to make sure that you keep track of them on your offline donation form, so that when Anselm receives them, he will be the fellow who manages the offline donations. He knows that it's part of your team. And the key to it is that we absolutely need their mailing address, because we cannot issue a tax receipt without a proper mailing address. So that's all in the Q&A section. So, and that also will come out in the e-blasts that I send out. So
can I just jump in there, Kim? Because I've got the FAQ up here, and I'm glad that you noted, Kim, that it might not be linked, because it's not. So if you
we'll make sure we link
about donating offline, and we'll just we'll reconnect that offline donation form, and it's just a printed out table where you are going to fill in that information. But the other thing I can just show you is, so for example, this is the Primate's homepage. So when she emails to the entire body of all Anglicans in Canada, asking them to support her, this would be the page that her friends would be getting. And if you as the owner can also, like when you set up your page, you'll have something similar to this, and it says share this page, and this little icon here is a link, but you can also post it on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, or put it into an email. But just so what your supporters, your friends that you're hoping will donate, would get this, and they would scroll down and see that they can donate now. I think the donate monthly is disabled. This is just to donate now to the Archbishop's program, or it could be your effort. And the donate, they can fill out either of these, or just enter in the amount that they want, and then they can also add a message of support. And then what you will see on your homepage is this will start to get populated under supporters. You'll start to see those donations coming in, and then you can thank your supporters as you see the emails coming in. So and that when supporters make a donation, just like other online things maybe you've participated in, the donor can decide if they want their comment to be public or not. You will see it, but they can also protect if they want it to be anonymous, or if they just want it to be anonymous to everybody else, or they can even say, like, I'm the name of the person who's supported, but not disclose the dollar value. It just depends on what people's comfort levels are. So that's, maybe it gives you a little bit more information of how that's going to look, Renee, hopefully.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Sorry we didn't dive quite that deep in the first place, but that's a good point.
Yeah, never worry about those questions, because if you're thinking it, others likely are as well. So.
And Joy is just asked, there's a couple of more questions here, Kim, so actually I'll just go in order. Julie is asked, how do we recognize our parish if we join under our name? So you probably have to have a little bit of communication with your parish team so that it's labeled, like if it's, you know, something unique that doesn't include the name of your parish, hopefully you will know the name of your team. But Kim, is there anything else to add there?
Yeah, so Julie, it's just that, yeah, you will be as the team captain, so you set up your page, so that'll be under Julie, but then when you set up your team name, yeah, good to include your parish name, otherwise make sure you tell your parish what the name of the team is, but that's on that team page. And that's where you're going to get the link to invite your parishioners to join that team.
I think even just in the time that we've had this call today, Martha did sign up the St. George's Dragons. So we do have one team now.
Yay, Martha.
And then, so good question from Joy. If someone goes to Canada Helps, will there be a specific donor button for the Wild Ride added to the Canada Helps page? I don't believe so.
I don't think so.
So you really want to get them to come to pwrdf.org/wild-ride. That's the, or send
Yeah,
them.
or send them the link to your direct page.
The better thing is to send them the link to your direct page, but if you're trying to.
Are there any other questions?
I think we've got everything in the chat here.
Okay.
I mean, Barb, I'll just maybe reiterate what I said to Barb in the chat, because she asked a question to everyone about, can we pick which refugee country or world area we are raising funds for? And the short answer to that is no, but what I said in the chat was that because the needs are so great in so many countries, we want to be able to direct funds you know, without restrictions, because things, you know, emergencies happen, and the in a particular area can sort of flare up, and where we want to be able to just say, okay, well, we've got these funds. So that's how we're doing it this year.
Oh, and I see there's some more chat questions happening here.
Yeah. Yes, you can pay by Visa. Canada Helps processes I think all major credit cards. And will receipts come from Canada Helps or PWRDF?
So they come from Canada Helps, but it's a PWRDF receipt. So it'll be clearly marked PWRDF, but the receipts actually come directly from Canada Helps. If you have people who donate online, if you have people who donate offline and you send the money directly to PWRDF, then the receipt will come from PWRDF. And just a note on that, so when they donate online, they'll get a thank you kind of note, which is customized from PWRDF through Canada Helps. So that's the quasi answer there. You should also send them a thank you. And at the end of the campaign, PWRDF will send a thank you and kind of a final wrap up thank you and progress to all donors for the Wild Ride campaign.
I just want to, you know, we're coming close to the end, but I just want to add, like, you know, this is obviously a really important way to support refugees and internally displaced people. It's also a really terrific way to introduce people to PWRDF. So we really want to thank you for your interest. And just if you know, if you might have lost track of that, like this is you know, we get a lot of new donors in who haven't heard of us before, but through your outreach, we can really help to spread the message of the good work that PWRDF is doing and of the plight of refugees. So, you know, don't lose sight of that piece of it, that this is a great opportunity to reach out to people who might not really know about your interest in PWRDF.
As well.
Sorry? Joy, were you asking a question?
Yes, I was wondering, when people donate, are you going to be sending out other messages to those donors about refugee stories over the course of the few months till October?
Yeah, so what's going to happen is we're going to be sending the refugee stories to our general, so just to encourage people to be part of Wild Ride, we'll be sharing refugee stories kind of to our broader email distribution. We will also be sending links and videos to you. So as you sign up, I send out something called Wild Ride Wednesdays. It's a hint, comes out on Wednesdays. usually. And in that is where we'll give kind of answers to questions, links to the Q&A document, links to videos and stories that we encourage you to share with your participants and donors. We also encourage you to invite your supporters and donors to the wrap-up event as a way of celebrating and also learning more about refugee stories. So we won't necessarily be sending them to your donors throughout the campaign, but certainly we'll be sending a wrap-up after the campaign and encouraging them to come to the wrap-up celebration.
And Louise, very good question. Is there a poster available or a handout? I will say that there's not just yet, but there will be, because I have to do it for General Synod next week. So we'll put that, we'll make that available in the next e-blast that comes out, and it'll also be on the website as well with all the other materials for like on that landing page. So great, thank you for the reminding.
Good question.
Janice, what's an e-blast?
So what is an e-blast?
Yes.
It's like an email that comes out to a whole lot of people at once that looks kind of like an HTML page. It looks like it's got like a lot of graphics, and you probably get lots of e-blasts from other organizations.
It comes through an email.
Yeah, like when you get the update every month from PWRDF, that's an e-blast.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have questions, and I'm sure you will along the way, feel free to email me and or Janice, but start with me on the Wild Ride. I'm happy to take the time to walk through it all with you. I know that sometimes the technology can be a challenge, although once you start, it's actually fairly intuitive. But if you do run into trouble, no question is a stupid question. So feel free to be in touch, and thank you all for your support and creativity, and I hope that you find this to be a lot of fun.
Want me to just close with that prayer, Kim?
Yeah, why don't we close with the prayer? I think we have handled all the questions at this stage, so sure.
Yeah, so this is a prayer for PWRDF that we usually incorporate into our praying with PWRDF, so you can enjoy this as you go on with your day.
God of hope, in an ever more connected world, you call us together in acts of caring, and you call us to uphold the dignity of every human being by transforming structures that deny that dignity. Child of peace, you invite us into friendship with you, you who are present in the vulnerable and marginalized, in the global south of Canada and the world. You challenge us to recommit and rededicate ourselves to ensuring their agency and to making the whole world safe. Spirit of love, you speak to us through the smiling faces of our partners, whose generosity of reflective, focused, and mindful caring calls forth our own generosity as we share food, share health, and share our lives. God, child, spirit, in this pandemic time, hold us, the people and partners of PWRDF, in your loving embrace, and walk with us as we continue on the journey towards a truly just, healthy, and peaceful world. Amen.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.